Now, we are going to get into some news that is happening, this time in Israel. Yes, I said Israel. Now, most of you might be wondering, what does Israel have to do with Uganda? What does Benjamin Netanyahu have to do with the situation that is going on in the country? What does the Ministry of Defense in Israel have to do with Uganda? Well, apparently what is happening is a group of human rights activists have gone to court in Israel to block the sale of arms to one of Museveni's security apparatus or security militia, known as the SFC. Now, for those of you who don't know what the SFC is, who are watching me from different parts of the world, the SFC is the Special Forces Command. For every dictator in the world, they make sure that they weaken the national army as well as other legal security apparatuses like the Uganda, like the police, as well as the army. Now, when they weaken those institutions, the security institutions that are recognized by the state, they create a private force for themselves to protect them, their families, as well as their wealth. Some political scientists look at this as coup-proofing. Now, in Uganda, we have a similar outfit known as the SFC, the Special Forces Command. Just like all other dictators, this outfit is always created, and when it comes to Africa, the people who are enrolled or who are recruited into this outfit, most of them must be coming from the dictator's homeland or the dictator's tribe, which is actually happening today. Also, the dictator makes sure that this is his most trusted group of individuals, that they will do anything for him in order to make sure that either he stays in power or he leaves the country safely in one way or the other. Now, we still have a similar outfit in Uganda known as the SFC, like I've told you, headed by Museveni's only son that we know of, called Muhoozi Kainerugaba. And the SFC has never been commanded by anyone from a different region, has never been commanded by anyone from a different tribe, except people from Museveni's tribe, which is an element that we are, speaking about right now. It started as a small outfit that has changed names over time. It started in 1997, blah, blah, blah. And then it changed names from PGB, the Presidential Guard Unit, to SFC now, the Special Forces Command. What is interesting about the SFC is it started as a small contingent, like, a few people, of 800 people. But as we speak today, they are 2,100 soldiers in this entire militia, or in this entire private farm that protects Museveni. Now, of course, as a dictator, most of them, what they do is this, that, weaken the army, weaken the police, and then elevate your private security. So what Museveni did is, he weakened the police by taking arms away from them and empowering them or equipping them with batons, as well as rusted AK-47s. Now, this is where Israel gets in. For the UPDF, it is the same case as well, by the way. UPDF is not paid. They live in poor conditions. For the Uganda police, they are not catered for. Recently, they had no power. Their barracks had no power for 3 months. The police of Uganda, the barracks is where these people live and their families. They had no power for 3 months. They have no running water. They can hardly take their kids to school. On the other hand, in the SFC, these guys enjoy chips, chicken. They eat goat's meat. They eat, all those sorts of dishes you can think about. Well looked after. Their kids are in some of the best schools in the country. They have a right to do anything they want. Like, they can kill. They have a right to kill. They have a right to arrest. They have a right to go into courts of law and parliaments and beat people up. They have a right to take away your land. That is what you get when you work with the SFC. You get it? So, he did not only empower them with the will to do anything that they want, but he made sure that he equipped them with the state-of-the-art weapons. Now, state-of-the-art weapons that we talk about, this is where Israel comes in. Israel gave these people, or empowered, they traded with Museveni, and I'll come into it, and they gave Museveni plenty of weapons. The weapons in questions are the Galil S assault rifle, as well as the Tava assault rifle. Now, the story ran a couple of days ago. Most of you might not have noted or might not have paid attention. But this was the story in the Daily Monitor that said that an Israel court, it said that activists in push to block the sale of Israel firearms to the SFC. An Israel court is on Friday 15th scheduled to start hearing the case in which human rights activists want the Israel government, through its defense ministry, to stop selling and exporting firearms to the Special Forces Command, a semi-independent unit of the Uganda People's Defense Forces. The activists, including a group of Ugandans in exile, through their attorney, Eita Mark, first wrote to the Israel Defense Ministry of Defense on December 5th, 2020, urging it to revoke the security export license to supply weapons to the SFC, particularly the Galil S and the Tava assault rifles manufactured by Israel military industries. The activists in the petition described SFC as an outside any legal framework in Uganda, and which has been turned into a unit of repression, citing numerous cases, including the 2017 raid on the parliament to neutralize dissenters of the presidential age limit. In these circumstances, if the defense exports to the SFC unit are not stopped without delay, the conditions of the offense of complicity and auxiliary conduct under the international law and Israel law regarding the officials in the Ministry of Defense and Israel defense exporters responsible for the exports may be met. That is the 43-paged petition reads in part. It also goes on to say that the IMD, that is Israel Ministry of Defense, however, went on to the District Court of Tel Aviv this week seeking gag orders to quash the activists' petition on grounds of national security. So they panicked. They ran very fast to Tel Aviv court in order to gag or to stop what these guys were pushing for, meaning that there was an impact. So they said, no, let's run to that and block it for issues of national security and foreign affairs that should not be interfered with. Well, the people of Israel should understand, the so-called Ministry of Defense in Israel should understand that the people they are equipping with arms, they are actually killing Ugandans. They are beating Ugandans, taking land at will, raping, and doing all sorts of things. It will be clarified that the state of Israel does not disclose details about marketing and exporting licenses. This is for its clear security and political reasons. Note, the state will not be able to address this in open answer the individual allegations raised by the petitioner. IMD's filing, a copy seen by this newspaper reads in part. Now, I'll stop there for now. But for those of you who don't know who Eita Mark is, that is the gentleman. That is the human rights lawyer in Israel that is fighting for the rights of people all over the world, and also exposing the corruption, the arms trade that Israel is doing to destabilize different parts of to destabilize, and also to and how Israel is actually participating in conflicts all over the globe, and how Israel is helping dictators and equipping dictators to suppress their own people. And we also know that Israel, of course, it has its own problems with Palestine and all this kind of stuff. But the fact that they are fueling other dictators in Africa by equipping them with these assault rifles is absolutely unacceptable. Now, among the guns that you can see, those are the assault rifle. That is the Tava S. This is the Galil S assault rifle that you see. These are the SFC guys. these are the SFC guys in Uganda. Like you can see, they are well catered for. They look after themselves. But if you look at the UPDF guys, it is the complete opposite. You cannot find them with such arms. You cannot even find them with gloves. These people even have pistols and everything. That is what dictators do. Mobutu did it. This gentleman known as Vodel Bokassa did the same. Bashir did the same. You know, this is common amongst dictators. That you weaken your army, weaken the police, then afterwards create an outfit that is stronger than any of these other any of the legal security institutions in the state. Right? Now, those are the guys that you see, SFC. And as you can realize, this picture was posted by Muhoozi Kainerugaba, the head of the SFC now, a son to President Museveni, the only one we know of, saying that Uganda Special Forces, Asiye Kifani, holding the Galil S assault rifles. Now, this is the Tava assault rifle, also another assault rifle that was given, or that was exported to the Uganda, to Uganda, or that were given to Museveni. And I'm going to tell you how the transaction actually happened that was given to Museveni. Those were the guns that is the Tava assault rifle. That, as you can see, that uniform is for an SFC officer holding that state-of-the-art assault rifle from Israel. So, Eita Mark. Now, to understand what is really going on, you know, and why the issue of Israel is actually very interesting for us, is we have to go back a couple of years ago and try to look in what happened between the relations of Uganda and Israel. Now, you should know that Uganda has a very long history with Israel. By the way, Uganda is there is an area in Uganda called Karamoja. You know, you remember those, in the 1920s, before, some of the Jewish financiers who financed the British government in the First World War, you know, they told the British that, look here, guys, we want to be taken back to the land of Israel. We want to take back our land. But the British actually suggested and said, look here, you might not be able to go back to Palestine because the land is already occupied by the Palestinians. But we have a certain piece of land that we want to give you. The land is in somewhere in East African country known as Uganda. So the British wanted to give Uganda to the Israelites, the Jews, right? So that's what it's there recorded. You can Google it. I think it's called Operation Uganda. It was a suggestion made by these British by then. You made it to the Jewish to tell them that, look here, guys, we want to give you Uganda. That is where we want to resettle you in Africa. It is called, I think it's called Operation Uganda, something of that sort. And we also know what happened between during Amini's regime and the Israelites. And then also the current Prime Minister of Israel, known as Benjamin Netanyahu, one of his brothers was actually killed during the raid in Entebbe when the PLO activists actually, took over a plane that was full of Israelites and Jewish people, in the 70s. Now, that is that Uganda has a very, very rich history with Israel. Now, during that time, the current prime minister, known as Bibi Netanyahu, his brother was amongst the people who came to raid Entebbe and take and rescue these Jewish people that were on this aircraft. Unfortunately, he was killed, during the fighting. So they have that connection, and so many movies have been done about that Entebbe scenario, where Israel and so on and so forth, and that particular incident. But coming into Museveni's regime, of course, we know that Israel has been working with Museveni. By the way, that gentleman that I've showed you, known as Eita Mark, who has taken on this case to the gentleman known as Eita Mark, who has taken on the case to the Israel courts of law. He has been fighting the government of Israel in terms of transparency, in terms of human rights. A couple of years ago, he filed for a case to make public the documents of Israel's involvement in the genocide that happened in 1994. Because it is said that Israel still supplied weapons to, it's among the countries that supplies, Israeli weapons were used in 1994 genocide. Unfortunately, a gag order was still put on those things, and then we never managed to read through how the Israelites actually traded arms. This goes way back in 1994. And by that time, you also remember Museveni's involvement with all this entire destabilization of Rwanda. Israel still exported arms to Sudan when there was an embargo on no weapons were supposed to be going into Sudan. Israel threw weapons there. Not only there, in Myanmar, recently in Burma, whenever they were beating and killing Muslims in the genocide that has been taking over in Myanmar, Israeli weapons were there. We know all about this because of this gentleman known as Eitamak. That gentleman. That is a very powerful guy. We know all about this because of Eitamak. You should go and read his articles and read his work. Very, very interesting guy. Cameroon today is facing a crisis, right? Between the secessionist movement of Ambrosia that wants to break away and the French-speaking part of Cameroon. This is the Cameroon conflict of two people, of two different two different parts of Cameroon, the French Cameroon as well as the English-speaking part of Cameroon. So the other English-speaking part of Cameroon wants to secede and break off and create this new state of Ambrosia. But still, Israeli arms have been found in Cameroon, right? Fueling the conflict. Okay? So Eitamak has been able to expose all these kind of things. Now, for Ugandan case, what Eitamak is, why he's coming on board, he is the right man for the job. Because number one, Israel is arming a security outfit, a private firm in Uganda that is not constitutionally recognized. I think is it Article 208 in the Ugandan Constitution. It stipulates very well which type of sections are supposed to be in the UPDF. I think it's the UPDF Act. It shows that we shall have the land forces, shall have the air forces, and then we shall have these so-called, the ground forces. But it doesn't say anywhere that the president will have private security, that the president will have the SFC. The SFC is unconstitutional. Right? Now, we all understand that the same SFC has played a very big role in rigging the January 14th election by beating people up, by arresting people, by kidnapping people, putting people on gunpoints using the guns that are got from Israel, the so-called Galil S assault rifle and the Tava assault rifle. So the activists are pushing for the Israel Ministry of Defense to stop exporting these arms to SFC, as well as to the Ugandan government, by the way. That is why they are putting gag orders. Now, that is why the IMD, the Israel Ministry of Defense, ran very fast to the district court in Tel Aviv to block that. Please don't make these things public. Because they know they are going to be exposed. And they have understood that the magnitude of this case is really big. Because they are not exporting to the government, but they are exporting to individuals within the government that have their own private security firms, that have their own private outfits within the security apparatus of the state. So that is Israel. Now, how much did it cost for Museveni to get these arms for his SFC? We still have to go back to the work of Eitamak, that gentleman you see on the screen. A few years ago, I think 2 or 3 years ago, most of you must have read about a story where the government of Israel was planning to repatriate, to deport over, I think, 300 migrants that had sought asylum in the country. But unfortunately, their asylum was turned down, and the government of Israel was looking to send back them to Uganda. To send back them to Africa and countries where they came from. Some of these people are coming from West Africa, otherwise were coming from Ethiopia and different countries in the different parts of Africa. Now, Israel under Bibi Netanyahu was looking everywhere on the continent of Africa on who can take these people. We don't want these black people in our country. Let them go. So they looked for countries. They looked. We have 54 states in the country, in Africa. But you know the countries that emerged as the right candidates to take these people? It is not bad to take refugees. What is wrong is to chase people who are seeking refuge. In Israel, taking in refugees is not what is bad. It's not what is bad in this entire scenario. What is bad is the fact that Israel is chasing these people away. And what the only way this becomes wrong is people who are willing to take in the refugees to solve Israel's problem, what it terms to as a problem. When you take in those refugees, you're not recognizing the rights of those refugees in that particular country. Because it is an international law. If someone is seeking refuge in your country or seeking asylum, he should be protected. Israel doesn't want that responsibility. So now this is what happened, and I'm going to show you why these people are so evil. Two countries emerged as candidates. Guess who? Uganda and Rwanda. Itamar followed the story because he was fighting very much for the rights of these refugees, asylum seekers. So Itamar pushed and pushed and pushed in the Israel press. Rwanda was supposed to take 53 migrants. 53 people who were deportees. Uganda was supposed to take 232 asylum seekers. After too much pressure, Rwanda pulled out of the deal. And they said, no, we have pulled out, we are not going to be part of it. Guess who remained in the deal? Uganda. Now, taking in people is not the wrong thing. But listen here very carefully on what I'm going to say, on what happened next. Museveni sat with the Israel government and he was like, okay, I'll take them in exchange for arms. Yes, in exchange for arms. And there is evidence in Uganda that Uganda is not a safe haven for refugees. Whereas the government tries to play a facade that Uganda, even the Europeans were saying, the European Union, oh, the Ugandan model, refugees, we should use the Ugandan model. But the government of Uganda plays tricks like they are playing tricks in Somalia. They organize their own refugees that will tell a positive story to the funders so that they get the money. Now, the people who are suffering at the back, the people who are being raped, those ones are not being talked about. The money that is being stolen, the numbers of refugees that is being inflated, the conditions of refugees that they go through, they do not discuss that. That Uganda is a model for refugees. So, Itamar exposed the Ugandan government. So, because there is evidence that the Ugandan government accepted to take in refugees in exchange for arms, which arms were going to be used against the citizens of Uganda. And some of the arms that that exchanged hands are the Galil S and the Tava assault rifles. So that is how Museveni got hold of these guns. And he did not take the guns into the UPDF, but he gave the entire cache to his private firm known as the Special Forces Command, SFC, that is illegal and that is under the control as well as under the command of his only son that we know of, Muhoozi Kainerugaba. Now, you all understand that the SFC is a very controversial outfit. Most of the people, 3 of its former commanders have all been recommended for sanctions by the United States of America. People like Donny Nabassa, Sabit Muzei, and now the son himself has come into command because most of these people are young and they do not want to be part of, to spoil their futures in one way or the other. So the fact that Muhoozi is the one in control now, we also expect that sanctions are going to go against this gentleman. Now, why is it important, as I'm winding up, for Atamark to block? Because someone can still say, yes, you will block the arms, but still the arms will go to the UPDF, blah blah blah, and all this kind of thing. If Israel thought that what they were doing was right, why did the Ministry of Defense run very quickly to court in Tel Aviv to put gag orders and block this entire case, and also block the petition? Why did they do that very fast? If at all what they are doing is good, why did they run very fast and put these orders? In the interest of national security, I hear national security as well as foreign affairs. Why did they do that? Because they should realize that the people they are equipping and giving arms, they are using those arms on us and killing the people of Uganda, which goes against the human rights laws of Israel as well as the international human rights. Because if the Israel government does not stop exporting these arms to SFC, what is going to happen is we are going to take them on. The activists' next step is to, because they really have a strong case here, they are going to take them on to the international court in order to address the issue of arms trade to a militia in Uganda that is well known in human rights violations and things of that sort. So this is what is happening. You look at things and you're like, how does this affect me as a Ugandan? How does Israel come into the mix? All of these stories we wouldn't have known, because some of the people do not, we don't pay attention, we can skip a few things here and there. But when we see these things and bring them up in the press and people know about them, then the government also gets scared, and people who are dealing with Museveni in terms of arms and all this kind of stuff, especially governments and such a kind of people, they start running helter-skelter. They get, at least, it does something, trust me. It is all documented. We can never know what took place in Rwanda, what arms were supplied in Rwanda in 1994. We cannot know today. Gag orders were put on these transactions that happened by the court in Israel. We cannot know. But now we have evidence, and now we have information, and we have now things that, the world information age, and now we can know what is really going on. And in future, people who will watch our videos will know that this is what Israel actually did to the people of Uganda. So we are looking forward on February 15th when the case is going to be heard, and we shall be keeping an eye and giving you updates on what will be happening after the case. Stay tuned for more programming and more episodes that will be coming your way. Thank you very much, and have a blessed day. Bye-bye.